My daughter said, "If you don't do what I say, you'll never see your grandchildren again." She thought my love for them would keep me obedient. Instead, that sentence followed me all the way to a lawyer's office. My name is Diane. I'm 63, I live in Ohio, and for most of my life, I've been the person everyone calls when they need help. That night started quiet and ordinary. I came home from the grocery store with a bag full of things my grandkids love. Little yogurts with cartoon characters, their favorite cereal, ingredients for chocolate chip cookies. I set the bags on the counter and felt the familiar ache in my lower back, the kind that comes after a long day. It was the kind of tired that usually feels worth it when you're getting ready for family. As I put the milk away, I pictured Saturday morning the way it usually went. My grandson in superhero pajamas sliding across my kitchen floor. My granddaughter climbing into my lap with her hair still messy from sleep. Just thinking about them warmed me, like a soft blanket over my shoulders. I could almost hear their voices in the house. Then my phone buzzed on the counter, a text from my daughter, Emily. Seeing her name lit the screen with a quick jolt of worry. The kind that comes from too many late-night mom. Can you help? Messages. Still, I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked it up. Hey mom, need to talk about money before tomorrow. The word money landed like a small stone in my stomach. Heavy. Familiar. I typed back, sure. What's going on? She called instead of texting. Her voice was tight before I could even say hello, and that tension crawled straight into my chest. Look, Mom, she said, I need you to cover my car payment this month. If my car gets taken, I can't get the kids to school. You know that. The guilt in her words wrapped around my throat. I glanced at the stack of bills on my table, my property taxes, my medical co-pays. I had already moved money out of my small savings to help her last time. My heart squeezed because I wanted to say yes, but my numbers didn't. Sweetheart, I said carefully, I love you and I love the kids, but I can't keep doing this. I'm on a fixed income. I can help with groceries sometimes, and I can watch the kids so you don't have to pay for childcare. But I can't take on another payment. Silence. Thick and sharp. I could hear her breathing, quick and angry. So that's it? She said. After everything I do, you tell me no over a little money? A little money. The phrase cut deep. It made me sound selfish for wanting to keep my own lights on. And every time she said after everything I do, it erased everything I'd already done. Babysitting, rides, meals, nights I stayed up with a sick child so she could rest. That hurt sat heavy behind my ribs. I'm not saying no to you. I tried, my voice shaking. I'm saying no to this situation. It isn't sustainable. Another pause. Then her voice went cold, the way it sometimes did when she decided she needed to win. You know what, Mom? If you're not going to support me, then we need boundaries. Maybe it's better if we take a break. Visits are over. You're out. Visits are over. It hit like a door slamming. You're out felt like being pushed out of my own life, like I was a stranger trying to enter a home I helped build. My throat burned, and I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. Emily, please, I whispered. I hated how small my voice sounded. Can we talk about this in person? The kids are expecting to come tomorrow. I already bought. She cut me off. If you don't do what I say, you'll never see your grandchildren again. I'm serious. I have to protect them from this stress. We're done here. Protect them. The word twisted like a blade, as if I was danger, not comfort, as if these worn hands, hands that tied their shoes and packed their lunches, were something they needed shielding from. The unfairness burned, but beneath the anger was something softer and much worse, the feeling of being discarded. The line went dead. She hung up. I stood alone in my quiet kitchen, surrounded by juice boxes and cookie dough and those little plastic cups of yogurt, and it felt like the air had been pulled out of the room. Everything I'd bought for them suddenly looked foolish, like proof of how badly I wanted to be included. My chest tightened, my eyes stung, I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Later that night, my tablet lit up with a video call from an unfamiliar account. When I answered, my grandson's face filled the screen, eyes red, cheeks wet. "Grandma," he whispered, "are we in trouble?" "Mom says we're not coming anymore. Did we do something wrong?" His sister leaned into the frame, sniffling. I don't want you to be gone, she said. I put your picture by my bed. Their tears pressed on every bruise Emily's words had left. I wanted to say, your mom is being unfair, but I couldn't put that weight on their small shoulders. You did nothing wrong, I told them, keeping my voice gentle and steady. I love you so much. Nothing will ever change that. This is a grown-up problem, not yours. When we said goodnight, my grandson pressed his hand to the screen and I pressed mine back, palm to palm through the glass. Then the call ended. The house went silent again, but something inside me had shifted. The pain was still raw, still deep, but beneath it, a new thought settled in, clear and solid. This isn't love, and I don't have to live this way. The silence didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces. First, my texts to Emily stopped getting the little 3 dots that meant she was typing. I sent, "Can we please talk about this?" "I love you," and watched the screen for long minutes. Nothing. I tried again with something simple. "Good morning, how are the kids?" Still nothing. Each unanswered message felt like knocking on a door with bare hands, while someone stood on the other side pretending not to hear. That night, I called. The phone rang once, then went straight to voicemail. I tried again, and this time it didn't ring at all, just the recording. My heart sank because I knew exactly what that meant. My own daughter had blocked my number. The word blocked echoed in my head like a label stamped on my forehead. One small setting, and I was pushed out of her life. My chest tightened and resentment rolled through me. It wasn't only hurt anymore, it was anger. Anger that she could erase me this easily after everything I'd done. I opened my laptop and went to social media, hoping I could at least see pictures of my grandchildren. Emily's profile was still there, but when I clicked her friends list, my name was gone. An add friend button sat where friends used to be. A tiny change on a screen. A huge change in my body. I saw new photos of the kids only because someone else had reposted them. On her page, I was shut out. A few days later, my grandson managed to call from a tablet while Emily was in another room. His voice was hushed, shaky. "Grandma," he said, "Mom says we're not allowed to talk to you. She says it's not safe." Safe hit like a cold slap. I kept my voice gentle. "What did she say exactly, honey?" He swallowed. "She said you're dangerous right now and we need space." Dangerous. I'm the woman who keeps extra Band-Aids in her purse, who worries about kids slipping on wet floors. Hearing that word placed next to my name burned in a way I can't fully describe. You're dangerous. It made me feel dirty and wrong, like a threat when all I'd ever done was show up. Cook meals, pack lunches, hold little hands. We need space was worse in a different way. It turned love into something they had to step away from. It twisted every bedtime story and school pickup into something ugly in her version of the world. When the call ended, I sat at my kitchen table and let the memories roll in, one by one, like an old home movie I hadn't asked to watch. I remembered the year Emily left her husband. She called me sobbing, saying she had nowhere to go. I took money from my retirement to help with the deposit on a small rental for her and the kids. I painted the children's rooms myself, even though my back hurt. I can still see my granddaughter dancing on the floor with a plastic paintbrush while I rolled pale yellow onto the wall. I helped build that safe place, and now I was being treated like a danger to it. I thought about the curtains in that same house. Emily sent me a picture of expensive ones she wanted online. I couldn't afford them, so I went to the fabric store, picked a soft blue pattern with little white clouds, and sewed them myself at my kitchen table. I stayed up past midnight guiding the fabric under the needle, imagining how the light would look in the kids' room. When she first saw them, she said, "They'll do for now, I guess." I pushed that aside then, told myself she was stressed. Now that small lack of gratitude felt like the first crack in something I didn't want to see. There were the birthdays I paid for, even when she promised to pay me back and never did. The soccer sign-ups, emergency dental work. The weekend trip with my church group I canceled because she called and said she couldn't handle the kids alone. I still remember sitting on my bed with my suitcase half packed, phone to my ear, hearing her say, "You know I need you. I thought you loved them." That line worked on me every time. Now it plays back with a different sound. less like a plea, more like a tool she knew how to use. As I sat there replaying it all, resentment grew, but it didn't erase my love. That was the hardest part. I loved her and the kids, and at the same time I felt used and pushed aside. One side of me said, "She's overwhelmed, she's doing her best." The other side answered, "Overwhelmed people ask for help. They don't call you dangerous when you finally say no." That tug of war left me exhausted. I thought of the holidays I hosted, staying up late cooking, cleaning until my knees ached, buying gifts I could only afford by cutting back on my own needs. I remembered one Christmas when Emily arrived late, barely said hello, and handed me a small gift card. "It's not much," she said, "but you don't really need anything anyway." It stung then. I smiled anyway. Now it sat heavy in my chest because the pattern was suddenly obvious. My effort wasn't appreciated. It was expected. Days turned into weeks without a word from her. Through someone at church, I heard Emily had been telling people I was unstable and causing drama. Those words felt like a layer of paint brushed over my real self, covering the truth. I wanted to shout, "I'm the one who drove her to night classes so she could finish her degree. I'm the one who watched the baby when she had the flu." Instead, I stayed quiet and wondered how long I'd been excusing behavior that was slowly erasing me. I sat alone at my table, surrounded by old photo albums and school drawings the kids had made for me. I traced the crayon lines with my fingertips. "To Grandma, I love you," written in crooked letters. The contrast between those honest little words and Emily's cold ones cut deep. And in that sharp contrast, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger alone. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was the first steady thought that what was happening wasn't only painful, it was wrong. A few weeks after that last call, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee and a pile of unpaid bills when my neighbor Carla knocked. She didn't wait for me to pretend I was fine. She took one look at my face and said, "You look worn down, Diane. Come over to my place. My brother's here. Maybe he can help you sort some of this out." Her brother, Tom, was a financial advisor. I'd met him once at a barbecue. Quiet, steady, the kind of man who listens more than he talks. I almost said no out of habit. I didn't want to be a burden, but then I remembered my grandson's voice cracking when he asked if he was in trouble, and something in me refused to keep pretending. At Carla's kitchen table, with fresh coffee warming my hands, I told them everything. The fight over money, Emily's threat, no car payment, no grandchildren. The way she blocked me. The way she told people I was unstable and dangerous. Saying those words out loud made my stomach twist. Each label felt like a sticky note slapped on my back where I couldn't reach it. Tom stayed quiet until I finished. Then he leaned forward and asked in a careful voice, "Diane, I'm sorry this is happening, but I need to ask you something. Have you checked your accounts lately? Any joint accounts? Any automatic payments where she still has access?" My heart jumped. Years ago, when Emily was overwhelmed and juggling bills, I'd given her access to one online account just in case. Back then it felt like trust. Thinking of it now brought a pinch of fear right under my ribs. "I haven't really looked," I admitted. "I just pay what comes in." I thought we were on the same side. Tom nodded once. "When someone uses children as leverage, they sometimes cross lines in other areas too," he said. "Let's log in and make sure everything's in order." Hearing it framed that way stung, uses children as leverage. But my mind immediately flashed to her exact words. "If you don't do what I say, you'll never see your grandchildren again." The unfairness burned all over again. I had paid for school supplies, sports, doctor visits, and somehow I was the one being treated like a threat. We went back to my house and opened my laptop. My hands shook as I typed in passwords. Tom scanned statements with the calm focus of someone who's seen a lot. Halfway down the list, he pointed to a series of transfers. "These here," he said gently. "Do you recognize them?" They were withdrawals, small enough to miss, always on the same day each month. They went to an account labeled with Emily's initials. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the floor shifted under my chair. Not only had she cut me off and called me dangerous, she had been quietly taking my money while she did it. "That can't be right," I heard myself say, thin and shaky. "I never agreed to that." Tom's face stayed composed. "It looks like the old access is still active," he said. "I'm afraid she's been using it." The resentment that rose in me then was different. Before, it had been tangled with confusion and self-blame. Maybe I said the wrong thing. Maybe I pushed too hard. Now it was sharp and clean. She had been reaching into my account like it was her wallet, while telling the world I was the problem. I whispered, more to myself than anyone. I paid for so much. Deposits, clothes, school, holidays. I even sewed curtains so the kids would feel cozy. And somehow I'm the one being cut off and called dangerous. Carla put a hand on my arm. "This isn't your fault, Diane," she said. "This isn't what love looks like. Simple words, heavy truth. For years, I'd told myself tension and guilt were just part of being a mother. Hearing it said plainly felt like a light switching on in a dark room. Tom suggested I start gathering everything connected to Emily and the kids. Texts, emails, cards the children made you, photos from birthdays and school events. Anything that shows your relationship, he said. And print your bank statements. You may need the full picture. The idea of gathering evidence made me uneasy at first. It felt like betraying my own child. But then I pictured Emily telling people I'd abandoned her when I'd been there for every crisis. I heard my grandson whispering that his mom said I wasn't safe. If I stayed quiet, her version would be the only one anyone heard. That night, after Carla and Tom left, I sat alone with my laptop and phone and scrolled back through years of messages. There were texts from Emily that read, "Mom, I don't know what I'd do without you," sent on nights I'd rushed over to watch the kids. Seeing those words now felt like comfort and salt at the same time. Proof that there had been love once, and proof of how far we'd fallen. I saved photos from school plays, soccer games, birthdays. In one, I knelt beside my granddaughter while she held up a certificate, and friends commented, "What a supportive grandma." Then I found a later public post from a school event where Emily had written, "It's just me and the kids. We don't have any family support." My hands went cold. I could have replied right there and started a fight in public, but I didn't. I saved the post instead. The children didn't deserve an online war. As the night went on, I made neat folders on my computer. Kids' photos, messages, bank statements. With each file I saved, I felt a little less like a helpless victim and a little more like someone quietly preparing to stand up. My love for my grandchildren didn't shrink, but my willingness to be treated this way did. By the time I shut the laptop, my eyes were tired, but my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been in months. My job wasn't to keep the peace at any cost anymore. My job was to protect the bond I had with those children and to protect myself. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pound on Emily's door. I chose a different path. I chose to get ready. By the time the court papers showed up on Emily's doorstep weeks later, I was already 3 steps ahead of her. Getting there took quiet planning, not shouting. After the night I organized all those files on my laptop, I made an appointment with a family law attorney downtown. When the receptionist asked, "Is this about custody or visitation?" I swallowed hard and said, "Grandparent visitation. My daughter is blocking me from seeing my grandchildren." Saying it to a stranger made it both real and deeply unfair. I had always pictured myself as the helper in our family, not someone who needed legal protection just to hug her grandkids. The attorney's office was calm and neat, with framed certificates on the wall and shelves of thick books. I sat on the edge of my chair, clutching my folder like a life jacket. When Miss Harper walked in, she shook my hand firmly and said, "Start from the beginning, don't leave anything out." There was something steady in her voice that made it easier to breathe. So I told her. The phone threat. The blocking. The way Emily told people I was dangerous. The way my grandson whispered he wasn't allowed to talk to me. Each time I repeated one of Emily's words, the hurt rose again, but this time it didn't freeze me. It pushed me forward. "Ms." Harper listened and took notes. "You've been deeply involved in their lives," she said. "Care, financial support, consistent contact. Cutting you off like this, especially tying it to money, is concerning. That sounds more like control than protection." Hearing a professional say it out loud made my chest tighten, then loosen. For months I'd wondered if I was overreacting, if I was the one stirring up trouble. Now someone outside the family was naming what had happened. It felt like a door opening. She explained how our state handles these cases. Courts sometimes allow grandparent visitation when it's in the children's best interest and when there's a clear, established bond. Judges look at patterns, she said. History of involvement, stability, the children's emotional needs. They also look at whether a parent's decision is based on genuine concern or on something else. Something else. That phrase sat in my mind like a label. Emily hadn't said, "I'm worried the kids aren't safe with you." She had said, "If you don't pay, you'll never see them again." That difference mattered. We went through my folder piece by piece, school photos of me with the kids, notes in crayon that said, "Thank you for taking care of me, Grandma." Texts from Emily. "Can you watch them again? You're the only one I can count on." Those messages warmed me and cut me at the same time. Warmth because they showed the real bond I had with the children. Resentment because now she was telling people I was unstable and needed to be kept away. Her lies looked even uglier beside proof of love. Miss Harper asked if anyone could speak to how involved I'd been. I thought of the Sunday school teacher who knew me by name because I brought the kids so often. I thought of the school secretary who once said, "You're here more than their mom. Those kids are lucky." I gave Miss Harper their names. The thought that other adults had watched me show up again and again gave me quiet strength. Emily's word dangerous felt smaller against all those hours at school plays and doctor appointments. When we finished, Miss Harper looked me in the eyes. "I believe you have a strong case," she said. "If you want to move forward, we can file for visitation and include documentation that suggests her decision is tied to money and pressure, not the children's needs." My heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. "Yes, I want to move forward. I wasn't trying to take the children away. I wasn't trying to punish my daughter. I was asking for time with two little people who had done nothing wrong." The day Emily was served, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I answered, and her voice came through sharp with outrage. "How could you do this to me?" she snapped. "You're dragging our family into court? You're destroying the comfort we worked so hard to build." Destroying the comfort. The phrase hit like a cold gust. I thought about all the years I'd helped make that comfort possible. Buying groceries, paying bills, picking up kids, filling the fridge, while she acted like it belonged only to her. In the past, I would have rushed to explain, to apologize, to smooth it over. This time, I remembered her threat. "If you don't do what I say, you'll never see your grandchildren again." I thought about the quiet withdrawals from my account, the way she called me unstable, the way she used the children's love like a lever. My resentment was real, but it didn't come with shouting. It came with clarity. "I'm doing what I need to do for the kids and for myself," I said. When she tried again, "You're making everything harder, Mom. You always do this." I heard the old trap opening, the guilt she wanted to pull me back into. "I'm not discussing this on the phone," I said and ended the call. Court day arrived with gray skies and early traffic. I wore a plain navy dress and held my folder like a shield. My hands trembled a little, but my voice didn't. Miss Harper guided me through my testimony. I described my time with the children, the birthdays, the school events, the nights they slept at my house so their mother could rest or go out. I kept my tone calm, even when I repeated the threat about never seeing them again. When it was Emily's turn, she said she was only protecting the children from stress. She used that word again, protecting, as if I were a storm they needed shelter from. Hearing it in a room full of quiet observers made it sound even less believable. Ms. Harper asked gently why a car payment and unpaid bills had anything to do with my ability to love and care for the kids. When Emily stumbled, I saw the judge's expression shift just slightly. A small sign, but enough to tell me the court could see what I had been living. Walking out of the courthouse later, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. I hadn't begged. I hadn't screamed. I had chosen action over endless apologies. Whatever the final ruling would be, one thing had already changed. I was no longer a person who could be controlled with threats about love. The judge's decision came on a bright afternoon, the kind of day that looked ordinary from the outside. I sat in that same courtroom with my hands folded while he read the ruling in a calm, steady voice. "It is the order of this court that Mrs. Collins be granted regular scheduled visitation with her grandchildren," he said, "and that their mother is not to interfere with or obstruct that visitation." Those words landed in my chest and pushed out months of tight, stale air. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just sat there, feeling deep relief and a quiet anger that it took a court order for me to see children I had once rocked to sleep. Emily sat across the room, arms crossed, jaw tight. When the judge added, the court also notes that the prior denial of contact appears tied to financial disputes rather than genuine concern for the children's safety, she shot me a look sharp enough to cut. That look carried a whole sentence. How dare you expose me? My resentment stirred, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because the judge had simply said what had been true all along, and she'd acted like I was the one twisting things. Outside the courthouse, my phone started buzzing. First came a text from Emily. Hope you're happy. You made your own daughter look terrible in front of a judge. The kids are going to be so confused. This is on you. Each line pressed a different bruise. Hope you're happy painted me as selfish. Made your own daughter look terrible, ignored the fact that her actions had been read out loud in that room. This is on you was her old move. Drop the blame back in my lap. The familiar guilt tried to rise, but it met something stronger. I told the truth. I owed my grandchildren honesty more than I owed my daughter silence. Then came a longer message. We had a system. You used to help with the kids and the bills, and now you've destroyed that comfort. Don't come crying to me when the family is broken. We had a system made my teeth clench. That system had been me quietly covering gaps, babysitting on demand, and saying yes even when my bank account said no. Hearing her call that comfort and then accuse me of destroying it hurt like being erased. I read it twice, then set the phone face down and didn't respond. That evening, I opened my email and saw a message from the kids' school counselor. The subject line read, "Thank you." My heart skipped. She wrote, I heard about the decision. I've seen you at events for years, and I'm glad someone recognized how important you are in their lives. Those kids light up when you're around. Important, light up. Simple words, but they washed over the ugly labels I'd been carrying. For a moment, resentment loosened its grip, replaced by something softer, proof that someone outside our family saw me clearly. A week later, I met with an estate planning attorney. The office smelled faintly of coffee and paper. We went over my small savings, the house, and an old life insurance policy. When he asked, "Do you want your daughter to have full control over any funds meant for the grandchildren?" The answer came fast. "No," I said. "I want a trust that goes directly to them, education, a first car, a safe start someday. I don't want anyone using money to control them the way I was controlled." We set up a trust with an independent trustee. Knowing that what I'd worked for would reach my grandchildren without strings tied to their mother's anger gave me a steady peace. It felt like placing a key into their future, even if I wouldn't be there to see them use it. Of course, the pressure didn't stop. A cousin I barely heard from messaged, "Emily is upset. She says you're making things harder for everyone. Couldn't you just let it go for the sake of the kids?" For the sake of the kids, the phrase that always meant, stay quiet, accept the hurt, keep sacrificing. Resentment flared. No one asked Emily to let it go when she blocked me, called me dangerous, and used the children as leverage. I typed back, "I love my grandchildren and I'm following the court's orders. I won't discuss this further," and put my phone on silent. Online, I saw a vague post from Emily. Some people pretend to be victims while tearing their own family apart. Stay away from toxic elders. The word toxic sat heavy in my stomach. I stared at it, feeling the urge to defend myself, to list every ride, every doctor visit, every night with a sick child on my couch. Instead, I closed the app. The court knew the truth, and my grandchildren would feel the truth when they ran into my arms. The first official visit was simple, an afternoon at my house. When the kids came through the door, they hugged me so hard I almost lost my balance. No cameras, no judge, no attorneys, just their laughter, the smell of peanut butter sandwiches, and their drawings spread across my table. For a few hours, the resentment faded into the background. What stayed in front was my grandson saying, "I'm glad we get to come here again," and my granddaughter whispering, "I missed you, Grandma." That night, after I drove them back and came home to a quiet house, my phone buzzed again. "Emily, don't get used to this. You may have won this round, but you still ruined our family." Her words still hurt because they came from my child, but they didn't get to decide who I was anymore. I set the phone down, made a cup of tea, and sat in the soft light of my living room. For the first time in a long time, I felt alone without feeling abandoned. There was no celebration, no big speech, just a quiet warmth in my chest and one steady thought. No one gets to hold my love hostage again. And if you're listening to this and you've ever been told to stay silent just to keep your place, hear this from me. You don't have to earn love by breaking yourself. Sometimes a closed door is the first step to opening your own.